The sleek, modern office of Pinnacle Enterprises buzzed with the clatter of keyboards and the hum of ambition. Employees in tailored suits moved with purpose, their eyes fixed on screens or superiors, oblivious to the woman scrubbing the marble floor. Maria Alvarez, 40, her face etched with quiet resilience, wielded a mop with steady hands. To the executives, she was invisibly mere cleaner, her dignity buried beneath their indifference. From his glass-walled office, CEO Richard Langley watched her with a sneer. A man accustomed to absolute control, he thrived on asserting his dominance, especially over those he deemed beneath him. As Maria worked, a glass tumbler slipped from her hand, shattering into countless fragments across the floor. The office froze, whispers rippling through the cubicles like a gathering storm. Richard rose from his desk, his polished shoes clicking ominously as he approached. Useless. Duh. He bellowed, his voice cutting through the silence. Stand up, you lazy fool, and do your job. The words stung like a whip, and Maria's cheeks burned with humiliation. She kept her eyes down, gathering the shards, as snickers from a few employees echoed in the background. But Richard wasn't done. Seizing a bottle of red wine from a nearby conference table left over from a client meeting, he poured it over Maria's head without hesitation. The liquid soaked her uniform, dripping down her face as she closed her eyes, her breath catching. Nervous laughter broke out among some staff, while others averted their gazes, discomforted but too afraid to speak. Richard reveled in the spectacle, his smirk wide as if he were the star of a cruel performance. Maria's hands trembled, but her voice stayed silent. She needed this job. Her family's survival depended on it. Richard leaned closer, his tone low and venomous. You don't belong here. I put food on your table, and I can take it away just as easily. The threat hung heavy, and the office grew stifling with unspoken tension. No one dared challenge the man who held their livelihoods in his hands. Unseen at the office entrance stood a man in a crisp military uniform, his posture rigid, his eyes blazing with restrained fury. Captain Diego Alvarez, Maria's husband, had come to surprise her at the end of her shift. Instead, he witnessed an act of cruelty that made his blood boil. His presence went unnoticed at first, but the weight of his gaze began to unsettle those nearby. Maria caught sight of him, her heart lurching. Shame flooded her, urging her to run to him, but her legs felt anchored to the floor. Richard, oblivious, continued his tirade. Look at her, everyone, he shouted, gesturing to Maria as if she were an exhibit. This is what happens when you let people like her into a place of prestige. His words, laced with contempt, drew nervous chuckles from some and bowed heads from others. Maria felt the ground crumble beneath her dignity. Diego stepped forward, his boot striking the floor with a sharp echo that silenced the room. The murmurs ceased, and employees parted instinctively, sensing a shift in the air. Maria's tear-filled eyes met his, a flicker of hope battling her shame. Diego said nothing, but his stare locked onto Richard, heavy with judgment. Richard finally noticed him, his arrogance unshaken. And who are you to interfere in my business? He scoffed, crossing his arms. The room held its breath, the question hanging like a guillotine. Maria's heart pounded, knowing this moment would change everything. Diego's gaze never wavered, each second a silent indictment. Richard, emboldened by his own hubris, smirked. Here to defend her, he mocked. I'm the authority here, and no one tells me how to run my company. He pointed at Maria, still kneeling in the wine-soaked mess. She's worthless, a nuisance. She wants to stay, she'll learn to obey, or she belongs on the street. Some employees shifted uncomfortably, their silence a testament to their fear. Maria's fists clenched, tears streaming down her face. Not just from humiliation, but from the crushing weight of powerlessness. Diego took another step, his presence commanding the room. His voice, low and controlled, carried a chilling edge. Watch your words. That woman is my wife. The office fell deathly silent. Richard's face flickered with unease, but he masked it with a forced laugh. And that changes what? Your uniform doesn't give you the right to make rules here. The tension was palpable, a storm about to break. An employee, trembling, spoke up. Sir, maybe you should calm down. Richard silenced him with a shout. Quiet, I'm in charge. Turning to Diego, he sneered, "You military types think you command respect, but here, money and contracts rule. She's just another employee, and if you don't like it, you can both walk out." Maria's tears fell harder, her dignity unraveling. Diego's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with rage and pain at seeing his wife so broken. The room felt suffocating, as if injustice would triumph once more. Then Diego spoke, his voice steady but seismic. "I'm not just any man. I'm a commanding officer of this region with more authority than you can imagine. I've seen men like you arrogant, untouchable fall hard." The room gasped. Whispers of respect, even awe, rippled through the employees. Richard's hands trembled, his bravado cracking. Diego stepped to Maria, gently lifting her to her feet and enveloping her in an embrace that restored a piece of her stolen dignity. He turned to Richard, his gaze unflinching. "You humiliated her in front of everyone, but today, you'll be the one exposed. Your abuses won't stay hidden." Emboldened by Diego's presence, 2 employees stepped forward. "He's done this before," one said, voice shaking but resolute. "He's mistreated others, too." The room filled with murmurs as more voices joined, unraveling Richard's carefully crafted image. His authority crumbled like the glass at Maria's feet. Richard shouted, "Lies! You all owe me loyalty." But his words fell flat, his power evaporating. Diego pulled out his phone, making a brief, authoritative call. "This is Captain Alvarez. Note this location. What's happening here will be investigated." Richard staggered back, his face ashen, realizing his weapon fear had been stripped away. Maria, still in her soaked uniform, lifted her gaze, her eyes no longer clouded by shame but alight with resolve. She took Diego's hand and faced Richard. "Respect isn't bought with money or titles," she said, her voice steady despite its tremor. "Today everyone sees who the real failure is." The room fell into a reverent silence. Richard stood frozen, defeated not by force, but by the truth laid bare. Within hours, whispers of the incident spread beyond the office. Employees shared videos captured on their phones. And the story of Richard's cruelty went viral, trending as CEO humiliates cleaner, regrets it. Pinnacle Enterprises faced immediate backlash, clients pulled contracts, and the board demanded Richard's resignation.